I'll start out with a moment I had yesterday, maybe over the weekend and yesterday, of not taking my own advice. And I was I was on the phone with Rambo. I spoke to Mark. I spoke to David Becker. I spoke to Scott Zimmerman. Where things had gotten very quiet in the news cycle, and I myself was getting a little frustrated. That's me. I don't, when you're a digital soldier, as they call it, and your job is to analyze news, and there's not a lot of news, it kind of gets frustrating. And it was interesting because I had to sit there and say, well, wait a second, I'm having one of my own moments there where I'm letting the pace of this, and I'm letting my own frustrations get to me. And all these guys helped, kind of talk me down, and we talked through it. And then the last post I put up last night, I said, well, guys, things are quiet, and you know what that usually means, so get some rest tonight. And then today we had quite a bit of stuff happen. And it's funny, man, Rambo. Now, I'm not saying they're listening to us, and I'm not saying this is a hat tip or anything like that. This is just a coincidence. But I started talking a lot last week on my shows about differentiating the signal from the noise, right? Like that's a classic Steve Bannon, right? Oh yeah, that's what I was saying all last week. I was like, what Trump is telling you, what the drops are telling you, that's the signal. And all the crap you're seeing out there with the Democrats and the dancing hyenas and all the other stuff, that's noise, and tune that stuff out. And what are we inundated with the last 24 hours? Is all this stuff about signal. Early on in like 2020, when I really started getting into the drops, and as you and I both talked about, you kind of go through the Rolodex of influencers, right? Some of them that act like they know more than they do, and then you realize they're full of shit, and you kind of move on. And there was a lot of those guys that were saying that, before the Greg Phillip days, that you have to have signal. It's in the Q drops. And that means it's your, and it's not, because we're going to go through the drops in a minute about that tell you exactly what signal was. And I think that's exactly what's going on today with all this news.
Hillary just posted 22 hours ago, when I screenshotted this today, about the Trump administration accidentally texting me its war plans with the Atlantic. And she said, you have got to be kidding me. For anybody that's been paying attention, for anybody that has watched the comms, followed Stormy Patriot Joe, you, me, or anybody else, we are well aware of who's running this account, and it's not Hillary Clinton. So for her to come out today and make a statement about this is, sorry for the pun, but signal.
It is. This is where it gets interesting, right? This whole signal thing. So let's start with this. Rambo, just overall, right? You see this coming out. So I think the initial thing, I know what it was. The initial thing for me when this started coming out, I'll be fully transparent. This came out yesterday, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. What's going on here? This is eerily similar to Trump administration 1.0. We have a scandal. What is going on? We got a scandal. And that's when I first saw the headline. And then I heard the word signal app, and I said, oh, wait a second. That might be where there's some, well, pardon the pun, some signal. But what was your initial take when you saw this crap?
Gut shot, bro. I'll just be honest with you. The first thing I thought was no leaks. But my second honest reaction when I saw it was, this isn't real. Go to the drops, go back to everything you've seen, figure it out. Instantly, when I saw this, I thought, no leaks. The drops told us no leaks. There's no way what we're watching right now is legitimate. Nobody accidentally added the Atlantic. And then when I saw somebody like Elon Musk go, the best place to hide something is page 2 of the Atlantic, I just started laughing.
I put on this slide, I thought this was a perfect thing. This gentleman or person, Truth Hammer Forever, wrote, Jeffrey Goldberg is one of Trump's biggest media enemies. And the guy who made up and published the Atlantic story, September 3rd, 2020, titled Trump, Americans Who Died in Wars Are Losers and Suckers. He has spent every month from then to now doing his very best to push the Russia hoax and going after any story that could derail the MAGA agenda. But are we supposed to believe, through no action of his own, that Goldberg was magically and accidentally added to a private Signal chat group full of senior Trump admin officials? Didn't know the chat group was real, which he has stated. Only after bombing plans were discussed and the bombs were dropped, he tragically realized it was real, and now he is sad and reluctant duty to come forward. I'm calling BS. Goldberg and this is where I disagree. Goldberg and or his CIA pals got him into that chat one way or another. Now, I don't discount that, because I think, and this is what I'm going to get to, I think that's what we're pointing at here. I think that's where this is going.
Dave, I don't want to derail where you're going with this, but can I add an extra thought to this?
Of course, dude.
I don't think anybody's even considered this. The mainstream, look, you and I both agree on this. I know we do. We've talked about it many times. What we're watching is a future proofs past D-class episode, right? They're showing us very real threats that the country was under. If you believe in full control, then you also have to believe that the mainstream media, Fox News, MSDNC, CNN, potentially the Atlantic, the owners of the people that allow these stories to go out are also under some level of control. So do I possibly believe that the editor of the Atlantic would first of all be leaked to, and second of all decide to publish without communicating to the people who are in control that they accidentally texted him? Stop it. If I'm the publisher of the Atlantic and I'm getting accidental text messages about war moves, I'm not publishing that. Not with Donald Trump in office.
How did a Trump-hating editor of The Atlantic end up on your Signal chat?
You know, Laura, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president, who has lied to Gold Star families, lied to their attorneys, and gone to Russia hoax, gone to just all kinds of links to lie and smear the president of the United States, and he's the one that somehow gets on somebody's contact and then gets sucked into this group.
He's telling you.
I got a clip for you to add. Watch this, because Donald Trump also tells you, okay? Listen close to what Donald Trump says here.
Well, I don't know anything about Signal. I wasn't involved in this, but I just heard about it. And I hear it's used by a lot of groups. It's used by the media a lot. It's used by a lot of the military, and I think successfully. But sometimes somebody can get onto those things. That's one of the prices you pay when you're not sitting in the situation room with no phones on, which is always the best, frankly.
So let's go to the drops, right? I just pulled a few of them here, and let's see what we got. So it dropped 4670, just gave a link to signal.org, nothing else, 9/11/2020. But then dropped 4672 on the same day. Said Signal since day one, did they know? Signal became one of the top 10 most downloaded social apps on iOS yesterday for the first time, according to data from App Annie. The app often sees spikes in downloads during tumultuous political times. But the last time Signal downloads ranked nearly as high was on the day of President Trump's inauguration. Rambo, what did we see take place on the day of President Trump's inauguration? Do we see some protests and some fires and cars getting flipped over, right?
Yeah, Antifa and BLM, yeah.
Antifa and BLM. All right, so remember Antifa in particular. This gets fun. So they're telling you, Q started telling you, look, the agitators, the Soros. Now, let's back up for a minute. I don't have time to play all these clips, but if you watch this show regularly, Rambo and I have both we showed clips 2 weeks ago where Greg Gutfeld, some of the guys on Fox, started seeding the public narrative in the wake of Doge. They started seeding the public narrative that money from U.S. aid was being funded through NGOs, and those NGOs, like Soros and such, were using that money to stage protests. Does everyone remember those clips? So start to think about how all this ties together. Now, here you have Q telling you back 5 years ago that they were using it. The deep state, the agitators, the agents provocateur was using it. So Q, again, going to the bottom left, says coordinated, analyze downloads, pre-protests, riots, start, 60 protests, riots, coincidence. Now think fires. So Q was telling you that the deep state, the agents provocateur, the people that were creating all this chaos throughout the country were using Signal to do it. And this is just another article, if you guys want to screen cap and read this later, but this is another article, and it says, from Citizen to Signal, the most popular apps right now reflect America's protests. And again, this is going back 5 years ago, all this stuff. So Q was telling you 5 years ago that Signal was being used for nefarious purposes. But as I say, Rambo, there's more. This is where it gets fun. What did you say one of the main users of Signal was Antifa, right? Check this out. Look at Chuck Grassley today. After my town meeting in Hampton, I had a news conference with 12 outlets. 12 outlets, that's a weird number. Why 12? Look at drop 12. Military intelligence reference above is the absolute biggest drop this board will ever receive. Now think about why Antifa plays right into the plan. Always ahead. The good guys are winning. This was Q telling you, we infiltrated. We had all their back channels. Well, how would they have their back channels? Through Signal. And in case people want to know, you can look right below on the right side. It's not like a secret. It was written, it was declassified, it was covered by the media that Antifa was using Signal to sow chaos. So start to add all this up, right? You have Q telling you a while ago about Signal. Anybody that's new, Chuck Grassley is a Twitter account you pay attention to. Chuck Grassley is hitting off the boards all of the time. So what are the chances that Chuck Grassley puts up a post on the same day all this stuff is happening with Signal, talking about military intelligence infiltrating Antifa, and which would have been done through Signal because that's the platform that they use to organize, right? So these are the strings of impossible coincidence that let you know that this is an op. Now, what's the other thing we can point to, Rambo? You find it at all odd that this story broke like what, 2 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, right? Something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And by 10 o'clock this morning, I wake up and there's a congressional hearing on it already.
That's such a great point.
That's not how it works, guys. That's
that is such
not
a good
how
point,
it works.
That's such a good point.
They have to send out notices and they have to agree on a day. And these people, what do you think? Oh, I guess they're scheduled. Bondi or whoever was there, Cash and one of the generals and I guess their schedules are just wide open at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning to go up to Congress. But I think Ratcliffe, Rambo, what I'm getting at, and I watched this whole thing, I think Ratcliffe gave you a giant nod as to where this is probably going. Take a listen to what he said.
Here, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director Signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Ratcliffe.
So he's telling you, I got there and they loaded Signal on all of our phones, and he's tying it back to the previous administration. Do we want to start taking guesses as to what they're trying to get the people to see?
It's pretty obvious, right?
I mean, there was some great takes going around on X. People were talking about the previous administration. Down at the bottom, somebody said, sounds like there's a lot that needs to be uncovered about how the previous administration handled communications. Wonder what else they were trying to keep hidden. Down at the bottom, the Biden administration added Signal to government communications. Trump inherited it. My guess is that some Biden admin leftover put the reporter in the group because he was in on it. And there's the Hillary Clinton post that you have there. So my initial take on this, dude, is they're trying to work people towards. I think this is all going to boomerang back around. So think about the parallels between Crossfire Hurricane, right? Rambo, they basically used they had all these different operations in place starting in 2015 to try to derail the agenda of the Trump administration. Well, how do you now kind of recreate that for the public? You do it again.